Hey, it's John, and welcome to the Versed Podcast, a pursuit to uncover what the Bible says. Today, we're going to be reading and studying Isaiah chapter 58, verses 10 and 11. Let's get into it. How do we trust the Lord when life is falling apart? There may be no better therapy for depression, for despair, and for grief than the formula given from today's verses. So let's get the context. The context for today's verses comes from the prophecy in the book of Isaiah about the coming Babylonian captivity of God's people from the land of Judah and their eventual return to the land. This was about a century away from happening. This section of Isaiah in chapters 40 to 66, they look even further ahead to the suffering of Jesus, the Messiah. Isaiah 53 is a precious chapter that tells us about the Messiah. Today we read from Isaiah 58, the last section of Isaiah's book, where the final pieces are put into place in explaining God's work of salvation and restoration, not just for the nation of Israel, but for all of creation. The beginning of this restoration from God's standpoint is the reestablishment of proper worship, something Israel failed at miserably. They wanted God's blessings on their terms, and God wanted worship from humble hearts, not with ulterior motives of future blessings. If they follow through on God's agenda and not their own, recovery would come quickly. So with that brief context, let's prepare our hearts to read from Isaiah today. We're going to be reading Isaiah 58, verses 10 and 11 from the ESV. If you pour yourself out for the hungry and satisfy the desire of the afflicted, then shall your light rise in the darkness and your gloom be as the noonday. And the Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your desire in the scorched places, and make your bones strong. And you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water, whose waters do not fail. It's important to recognize that this beautiful recovery for the nation of Israel, and for all of creation, and for us today, in our own despair and our grief and depression, hinges on the restoration of proper worship. That's again why context is so important when we read the Bible, because you could easily snatch this out of context. Proper worship is symbolized by fasting and coupled with just and charitable outreach to the poor and to the oppressed. And if I could be honest here for a second, I've been a Christian for most of my life, these 35 years on earth, and I had never understood or practiced fasting really until the past year, which is convicting in a way, because fasting is a spiritual discipline that continues today. It's not just some long gone thing of the past. I'd never done it. I really didn't know if it was wrong necessarily not to. I don't think it is, but certainly the Bible shares that if we want God to hear our voice, the practice of fasting with proper motivation allows us to come into God's presence in a powerful way. And imagine the voice the church could have in heaven today with proper worship that comes across class and ethnic and denominational bounds, like to collectively fast and call on God to intervene. Convicting. I thought we were just going to do a nice little talk about how to deal with your depression, but it's moved into something else. And God has his way with that sometimes. But it's important to follow his lead and not our own. Proper worship. Let's do it. We'll transition now into a time of reflection on what was revealed today, and that may be something different for everyone. Maybe you want to be still. Maybe you want to pray and be with God. Maybe we want to start proper worship now with some reflection. Whatever you'd like to do, I encourage you to take the time. Then I'll come back on the other side. so much for listening to the Verse podcast today. I hope you are receiving hope and encouragement. I hope you are developing emotional guts and fortitude to handle the pains of life that you might be walking through as well, and that you're uncovering more together with me, more about what the Bible says. It's so much fun. Hey, so check out the show notes for all the resources I use to study the Bible and to put these podcasts together. My social media is there as well. I'd love to connect with you. Everything you need to know is in the show notes, so check that out. Until we talk again, we'll see you.